Hey, this is Josh from SYLOSIS. I'm going to be running through some of the guitar parts from my new album, Dormant Heart. In terms of gear, I'm using my ESP Eclipse 2. It's got the EMG 5766 set in it, which are really like an awesome balance between an active and a passive. And I'm going through my modded JCM 800 and an orange cab at the moment. Alright, so that's the verse riff from Dormant Heart. Basically the approach to that, I'm a huge fan of like raging old school thrash stuff, so bands like Slayer and early Metallica, and I just really like the intensity and aggression you get from just a lot of that kind of fast alternate picking stuff. But to kind of break it up a bit, just throw in some sort of hammer-ons and pull-offs, which it is kind of tricky to get this one tight, but in all honesty, it's just quite basic sort of hammer-ons and pulling off on the A and E string. So slow down the riff is. So that bit slowed down, what you're doing is some hammer-ons and pull-offs. You're doing the 3rd fret and the 7th fret on the A string. Then you're doing 5, 7, then open pull-off on the E. So for that riff, just really aimed for aggression and speed and stuff, and the hammer-ons and pull-offs add this kind of urgency to the riff. There's a sort of joining motif before the riff switches to A, which is... For that bit you're doing... which is exactly the same as before, but instead of going... pulling off to E, you're just going... pulling off to that A note. At the very end there's a sort of little gallop. And growing up, just being obsessed with like early Metallica and stuff, I used to play the riff to Battery all the time, and just really worked on that kind of gallop, kind of picking and stuff. And I always consider myself more of a rhythm player than a lead player, just because I spend so much time doing the riffing kind of stuff. The important thing with that kind of playing and all the really fast alternate picking stuff is to really focus on stamina and endurance way over speed, because speed just comes with time. So it's better just to practice for stamina and just being really consistent and even with your picking at a slower speed. And it goes for all aspects of guitar playing. If you practice something slowly, you'll end up getting the results you want just as quick as you would if you go straight into trying to practice it faster. You'll just be doing it in a better way. You'll be really developing that sort of muscle memory in your fingers and hands and stuff. So always stick to practicing stuff really slowly. So the next one I'm going to show you is from a song called Servitude. It's got a sort of slow Pantera kind of grind to it, and it incorporates a lot of inverted power chords. So basically, being in standard E tuning, I've never been a fan of doing the kind of drop one finger kind of riffs, but we end up doing a lot of one finger stuff when it comes to the inverted side of things, and we only tend to play the low 2 strings when we do inverted power chords anyway, so a lot of the time we'll be doing and just using one finger for those 2 notes. So yeah, we use a lot of inverted power chords because we play in standard tuning, and we just try and experiment with different ways to sound heavy without down tuning and relying on that. And it forces you to think more about the riffs and the notes you're playing, as opposed to just playing any old stuff on a 7 string around this area and you can't really make out the notes. That and the fact that most of the music we're inspired by, like the early thrash stuff, is all in standard or E flat and stuff. So the thought process behind this one was just to be really kind of slow and stompy kind of sounding, and just incorporate those inverted power chords. Right, so for this little run, it's just just kind of pentatonics just on 2 strings, the B and the E string. It's sort of reminiscent of the sort of stuff that Zach Wild does with it. I've always been really into picking every note, or being able to pick every note. I like the aggressive kind of snap and pick attack you get from it. Not that I always pick every note, but a lot of the time I do. And I kind of struggled with doing the kind of stuff, and just try doing it starting with an upstroke, because it makes more sense if you're coming down a pentatonic scale to do up, down as you go up the strings like that. And I thought it might take me a while to do, but it literally, like, to get used to, but it took me like half an hour of just sitting there and trying out, and then, you know, essentially it's just alternate picking, which I'm used to doing a lot of anyway. So just starting on a 1 with an upstroke took a little while, but once you get that down, it is very useful to be able to do that. I've never been a fan of economy picking and stuff, because, like I say, I like a really aggressive and hard pick attack, and very few players who use economy picking really get that kind of aggression from their playing, and I like to really dig in. There are some players that can do it really well, like Rick Graham has an insane economy picking pick attack, but he's a freak of nature. So yeah, basically starting with an upstroke when you do those kind of pentatonic things is really useful. The solo in Mercy's got more of a kind of classic rock vibe to it. So putting in some of those kind of pentatonic, more classic kind of sounds really suits that one. At this stage we're sort of really well known for doing a lot of kind of sweep picking stuff, but we always try and use it in a more musical way, and I tend not to do it actually in guitar solos. We tend to kind of make kind of hypnotic looped kind of sequences, kind of like maybe a harp might do or something like that, over riffs and stuff, and on this song we actually harmonised it, both guitars, both sweeping at the same time, and harmonised it in thirds, major and minor. Gives it a whole new sound when you start harmonising sweeps and sort of pan them left and right and stuff. So for the song Where the Wolves Come to Die, it's got sort of a really slow, doomy vibe to it. So most of the riff is inverted power chords like that, and what also helps make it sound even heavier and lower than it is the bass playing power chords at the same time, quite a thick kind of distorted bass tone as well, so it all sort of helps build this kind of wall of sound, and again it's sort of like a kind of fun challenge for us to kind of think of ways to be really thick and heavy while still being in standard E tuning. That riff is sort of like an intro to the album kind of song. Normally we open the album with a lot of really fast kind of technical kind of thrash stuff, and this time we wanted to kind of have a really slow kind of atmospheric and doomy vibe, but really heavy at the same time, and that's one of my favourite riffs I think on the album. So for that lick, it's basically kind of like an arpeggio without doing anything traditional with an arpeggio like you normally would, like with sweep picking or anything. There's a lot of sort of slides up to notes and repetition of notes just in a higher octave. So like even slower than that.